I think I'll get us started at this point. So thanks for joining today. Really appreciate it. Our topic today is about the Medicare changes for 2023. Usually this would be kind of a dull topic. We do this webinar every year, and it's good to have the updates with Medicare A and B benefits. But it's the same thing, and it's usually not very big changes. But for this year, there are some additional changes we'll talk about that I guess if you call it interesting, it is Medicare. But I guess there's some additional changes we'll talk about that are a little unusual and new and important for you to know as agents and for us to know as agents for enrolling our clients in things like Part B and that type of thing, and then a new type of Part B that's been added. So we're going to go over various questions. So again, this is Ed Crow. I'm glad everybody came on today. Couple things. If you want to watch future webinars, we usually do them on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 1 o'clock. We send the emails out. If you're not getting our emails consistently, just call us. If you want to watch a webinar in the future, but you can't make the time, all you really need to do is register. So everybody who registers, whether they attend or not, they will get a copy of our recording. And then lastly with that, I will say, if you want to watch any of our old webinars, and we do them on a ton of different topics, you can go to youtube.com, Crow and Associates, and we have all our recorded webinars on YouTube. So it's over 100 of them, and a lot of Medicare topics, some other things as well. I say this kind of periodically, but if people have topics they would like us to go over, I'm always looking for ideas. Just call us or email me or text me, and I'd be happy to go over new topics. Do a webinar on a topic that someone suggests, so always open to ideas there. If you have any questions, send them into the question section of the webinar. I'll answer them at the end. I know a lot of people want me to answer them as we go through. I'm just not smart enough to do that. So I struggle with doing the webinar and answering questions kind of during it. So I promise, though, I will try to answer, I will answer them, all your questions at the end. Hopefully I know the answers. So for today, let's get started. Our topics are, we're going to go over the Part B enrollment changes. Those are substantial and something you really need to know. The Part A cost shares, Part B premium and cost shares. We'll go over the Part B and D Irma. And then we're going to talk about the new Medicare Part B. It's a very limited Part B for immunosuppressive drug coverage only. So we'll hit that up. And then we're going to do some random stuff at the end, like the OOP change. I wrote on there Medicare Part B. What I meant was Medicare Advantage, the out-of-pocket maximum that has been set by CMS. So we'll go over that as well and some other things too. This webinar should take about 25 minutes. Okay, so the Part B enrollment change, this is a big one. So Part B enrollment obviously is important. You get a lot of people turning 65, or especially when you have delayed Part B enrollment. A couple big changes here. So first of all, just so we're all on the same page, obviously when you're turning 65, your Medicare IEP is the first 3 months before you turn 65, the month of, and the 3 months after, just like the MA enrollment rules. The way it works currently in 2022 is if you're in the last 3 months of your Medicare IEP, if you enroll in A and B in the last 3 months, A will retro back to the month you turn 65, but B in those last 3 months is delayed 2 months. So example of that, somebody turns 65 in July, they enroll for A and B in August, so in the first of the 3 months after their birthday, they're going to enroll. They're going to get A for the month they turn 65, but B is going to be delayed an additional 2 months, so they're going to be in November 1 effective for B. That's how it works currently. Sometimes people aren't even aware of this rule, but that's what happens. That's why you'll get surprised and be like, why is there B, effective so far down the road? They are doing away with that now. So in 2023, when somebody enrolls in A and B for the last 3 months of their A and B IEP, their Part B will be effective the first of the next month. There will no longer be a delay. The A will still retro back to the month they turn 65, but the B will not have that delay, which is really nice. Last thing on that topic is sometimes, and I've tried it in the past, people will say, well, I got somebody applying for Part B in the last 3 months of their IEP. This is currently. They'll say, I don't want to have that delay, so I'll try to use a loss of group coverage SEP. You cannot do that. It gets denied. I've tried it, so I can speak from personal experience, learning the hard way kind of thing. when somebody's in their Medicare IEP, you cannot use a loss of coverage SEP to override it. So, but in 2023, that's not going to be an issue now because the B is going to kick in the first of the next month anyway. The other big change is for the GEP, the Medicare GEP. So that's for somebody who missed their IEP for Part B of Medicare. They don't have a special election. Those people get stuck enrolling in Part B in the Part B general election period, which runs from January 1st to March 31st. And what happens currently in 2022 is when they enroll in that time frame, their Part B kicks in for July 1st. So obviously a big delay. That, and this is big news, that is going away. So for 2023, if somebody enrolls in the GEP for Medicare and they enroll in January, their Part B is going to kick in February 1st. If they enroll in February, it's March 1st. March, it's April 1st. No longer does it kick in for July 1. If you want to see this in writing, it's on page 17 through 19 of the Medicare and You Handbook, the most recent one that came out. So that's a big change and will help a lot of people. In addition to that, they've added a number of Part B Seps. So you need a SEP if you miss your A and B IEP, or you maybe you need A and B during the year. But in the past, if somebody missed their IEP, they only had the GEP to rely on. The only SEP you really had, you had a couple, but the main one was losing group coverage. That's obviously a Part B SEP that you can use. But what if they don't have that? Well, they've added a bunch of new ones now for 2023. So for those who missed their IEP, maybe they missed the GEP and they don't have a valid SEP for loss of group, new ones have been added for 2023. And I know I'm going to get the question of, well, how are they going to verify these? Or they're kind of vague, Ed. What kind of details are there? I don't have that right now. I don't know when we'll get it or if we'll get it. But here's what they list. So new SEPs for Part B enrollment, this is any time during the year for a SEP, is if the person experienced an emergency or disaster during other Part B enrollment periods. So during their IEP, during the GEP, they experienced a disaster or emergency, they could be eligible for a SEP to enroll the first of the next month, regardless of the time of year. I do not know what's going to be determined to be a disaster. I mean, I have one every day, it seems like, but I'm sure mine wouldn't qualify, or maybe they will. We'll find out. But anyway, that is an SEP. Really interesting one is employer or health plan made a material error, omission, or misrepresentation of facts. So you get this a lot where somebody's actively working, they're over 65, they've got coverage through work, and they retire, and maybe their work lets them keep coverage, or maybe they take COBRA, and they wind up missing their Part B SEP, and they miss their loss of group coverage SEP. So the way this set is written is if it's an omission or lack of information in that scenario, most likely, they will potentially have an SEP to enroll in B. I don't know what the parameters of that will look like, how much leeway we'll have with it, but it's there. The incarcerated one is good too. Currently what happens is people become incarcerated, they don't use Medicare benefits, so a lot of times people will disenroll in Medicare B, and why pay for it is the thought. But you aren't allowed to. If you're incarcerated, you're supposed to keep Medicare Part B. It's not a valid waiver for it. And then when you get out of incarceration, you don't have an election for B. And you're going to get penalized for the months, years, decades that you didn't have it. Now people, once they are released from prison or incarceration, I should say, once they're released, that is an SEP to immediately enroll in B, and they can get it right away. Probably the biggest one here is an SEP for Part B for people that lose Medicaid. So if they lose Medicaid, they're going to have an immediate SEP for Part B. How will this be tracked or verified? I have no idea at this point. I should mention, too, that on all of these, this does not waive the Part B penalty. That is still the same. You'll still have a Part B penalty if you didn't have B when you were supposed to, but this makes it a lot easier for people to get B during the year or a lot quicker than they used to be able to. All right, let's talk about enough of that. I think that's, though, probably the most important part of this presentation is the B changes. I mean, they will have a big impact on a lot of us as agents. But let's talk about the A benefits now. So from 2022 to 2023, the deductible for Part A of Medicare is going from $1,566 to $1,600. A lesser known fact here is, how about people who don't qualify for free Part A? Well, believe it or not, there's two brackets for that. I think we probably forget there are two. Sometimes I do myself. If they don't qualify for free Part A, somebody who has they have 30 plus quarters but less than 40 quarters, their Part A premium in 2023 will be $274. The one I think we tend to forget about a lot is somebody who is less than 30 quarters. So they haven't even met 30 quarters, so they got less than 30. Well, their premium's much higher. That's going to be $508 in 2023. So forget about that window sometimes. If they have 30 to 40 quarters, they're going to pay premium, but it's less. Less than 30, and then they're paying the standard $508 for 2023. I'm going to go over the benefits on the next slide. One thing with the hospital deductible to keep in mind, with original Medicare, the hospital deductible is charged every benefit period. So if you go in the hospital, you pay your deductible, or your supplement does, for example. If you come out and go back in within 60 days, you don't pay it again. And I think a lot of us mistakenly apply this to Advantage plans too, which is not the case. If you are in a Medicare Advantage plan, you do not have a 60-day benefit period exception. So let's say you go in the hospital under an Advantage, you max your hospital copays out, you come out of the hospital, a month later you go back in, you're going to pay the copays again. You don't get that exception like you do on original Medicare. And here's just a review of the benefits, 2022 versus 2023. We put the daily coinsurance, the lifetime reserves, and the skilled nursing in there. Not huge changes, obviously. A decent change on the inpatient hospital deductible, but that's about it. And I will send you a recording of this webinar, and we can send you the presentation too if you want, so you don't have to jot these numbers down. Okay, let's talk about Part B now. So the monthly premium for B is currently $170.10. That is going down. It's going down to $164.90 in 2023. Same thing with the Part B deductible. That's going from $233 currently to $226. So slight adjustments. I would assume that's fairly political to try to cope a little, or theoretically cope with inflation a bit, but that's what they're doing for 2023. The deductible. One thing to mention on this is, I get this question a lot. The Part B deductible does not reoccur in the same year. So an example of that is if somebody's in a Med Sup, a Plan G, let's say, and they meet their deductible for the year, I get the question a lot, well, if they switch to another Plan G with another company, for example, that's cheaper in the same year, will they have their Part B deductible again? No, they will not. It only has to be met one time. All right, so we're going to go to Irma next. We'll do the Irma for Part B. The income thresholds went up a little bit on Irma across the board for B and D. So that's a good thing. That means you can make a little bit more money now before you hit a certain Irma penalty, or I'm supposed to say adjustment amount, for that income bracket. And then the penalty, and again, I'm supposed to say adjustment amount, income-related monthly adjustment amount. The adjustment for each level went down a little. So when you hit each Irma level, you will pay a little less in 2023. Let me go back for a minute on this. Keep in mind when you're talking Irma, you got to remember it's 2 years behind. So when we're determining 2023 Irma, it's based on their 2021 income, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, there's a new Part B now as well. It's a Part B for immunosuppressive coverage. That's immunosuppressive drugs affiliated with someone who had a kidney transplant. People will be able to buy a limited Medicare Part B plan for $97.10 a month that will cover immunosuppressive drugs only. And this is for a very specific situation. When somebody has end-stage renal disease, kidney failure, they can obviously get Medicare within 5 months. It's 4 or 5. Drawing a blank. Anyway, once they have end-stage renal, they're eligible for Medicare within 4 or 5 months, even if they're under 65. But if somebody gets a kidney transplant, and let's say they're 50 years old, and they were on Medicare because they had end-stage renal, they get a kidney transplant. After 36 months, they get kicked off Medicare. So they won't be eligible for Medicare any longer. And what happens is the immunosuppressive drugs you have to take for the rest of your life with a kidney transplant are incredibly expensive. So they're coming up with this limited Part B specific for these people. They had the kidney transplant, got kicked off Medicare at 36 months because they're not Medicare age yet. they'll be able to buy that limited Part B for $97.10 a month that will cover only the immunosuppressive drugs, but that is a substantial expense, so that could lead to a massive cost savings for them. And that is new for 2023. Here's our Part B Irma. And again, I mentioned before, it's based on income from 2 years prior, so they're using their 2021 income to determine 2023. I'm not going to read through all the grids. I'll just kind of explain how they're listed. The first one are an individual tax return. The second one are people that are married doing a joint return. And the third bracket then, the income-related monthly adjustment amount, is showing you how much extra they will pay towards their Part B for Irma, and then it totals it up on the end, meaning the penalty or the adjustment plus their actual Part B premium. That's why on the first bracket it says $164.90, because there is no adjustment. So it's the standard 2023 $164.90. But after that, you can see the adjustment that is made and then their total cost, how it goes up. And then one we tend to forget about a lot is the fact that there is an Irma for Part D as well. I think we focus, or I'm speaking for myself, I guess, I in the past have focused so much on talking about the B Irma that I sometimes have forgotten the D. And people don't get happy when you do that. It upsets them. So don't forget the Part D Irma. Here is the bracket. It's the same brackets, the same income levels, and they're slightly less than 2022. Same income levels is determined for B. The only big difference is the amount of adjustment you pay. And you can see it there. It's smaller amounts, obviously. This will be in addition to their Part D premium, or if they're on a zero premium advantage plan with drug coverage, they will have to pay this amount, so it no longer technically will be zero premium. So that is the Irma for Part D for 2023. And same thing, it's 2 years behind when they determine the Irma. And somebody asked, does it adjust every year? Yes, it adjusts every year, but always 2 years behind. Okay, I talked over my slide a little bit. I do that all the time, unfortunately. Irma for Part D, as I mentioned, don't forget it, based on two years prior, updated every year. And then the one that's important to know is the exceptions for life-changing events. An example here is somebody worked, made a lot of money, and let's say in 2021, they were making substantial money. They then retire, and in 2023, because for the Irma, they're looking at 2021, they retire, their income goes way down, and they are being assessed in Irma based on income 2 years ago, but they have substantially less income. They can get an exception. That is a life-changing event. They can get that adjusted immediately, so they don't have to pay an Irma, and they can base it on their current income. But you got to have a life-changing event to do that, and some of them, the more common ones, are reduction in work hours, retirement or losing your job, are really the two big ones. Okay, so that's Irma. And now we're going to go to just some changes and adjustments you need to be aware of. The max allowed out-of-pocket max on an Advantage plan is going from $7,440 to $8,300 in 2023. I don't want to confuse people here. Carriers they can offer whatever they want for an Irma up to this max. Now, obviously, in states like California, LA County, for example, out-of-pocket maxes are, $800 and some dollars. In New York, a lot of plans are set, $6,700 or $7,400. So this doesn't mean everybody's going to put their out-of-pocket max at this level. It just means that they can if they want. That's what they're allowed to go to. So in some areas, you may see, if you're at a $7,400 out-of-pocket now, they might go up to $8,300. But again, in states where they're way below this, they're probably going to stay in that ballpark. Okay, more companies are participating in the Insulin Savings Program. Those not familiar, Insulin Savings Program companies choose by state, by county, if they want to participate with their plans in it. For those that do participate, it makes it so certain name brand insulins are a $35 copay throughout the year, not subject to deductibles, not subject to donut hole, nothing, just $35. There's more companies this year that are participating in that, and it can make a huge difference on the math for people. If you want to see what plans and carriers are participating in that in what areas, use Connector and Sunfire. We offer both. Medicare Bot as well. We offer Connect Your Sunfire and Medicare Bot at no cost. It's going to do the call recording at no cost, and it can quickly and easily let you run drug plans and see what companies are giving the insulin savings $35 copay. Some other stuff here. Adult vaccines. So for 2023, there will be no cost sharing requirement for certain adult vaccines, which will include the shingles shot. So the shingles shot, which obviously is expensive and will hit people's deductibles on their drug plans, will be zero cost. That's a big change. In 2024, so that's for 2023. I got a couple that are going to be in the future here. In 2024, they're going to implement a 6% max increase on standalone PDP plan premiums. So that's not for this coming year, it's for 2024. So in 2025 then, it's slated, we'll see if it happens, but it says in 2025, they're going to change and make it so prescriptions are capped at $2,000 out of pocket, meaning regardless of deductibles, copays, coverage gap, all that stuff, the most a person will be able to pay for their drugs for the year is $2,000. After that, they will pay no additional costs. That is slated to go into effect for 2025. I guess I'll believe it when I see it, but that's what it says. Also, I want to thank Bob and Elizabeth Azid for telling me these. I forgot all about these updates, and they're really astute, so they mentioned it to me, and I put it on here today, so thanks to Bob and Elizabeth. A couple final things. I know we've done webinars on the CMS call recording requirements. So we have a webinar on that goes over how to be compliant with the recording requirement, with the disclaimer requirement on both the call recordings and on all your sales materials and websites. So if you haven't watched that, I suggest it. It gets right to the point. One thing I want to mention that comes up all the time is if you are meeting face-to-face, you do not have to record the calls. People try to come up with variations. Well, what about when I set the appointment? No, if it's going to be a face-to-face meeting, there is no call recording requirement. End of story. Okay, so watch that webinar. If you haven't, I think it'll help. It's YouTube, Crow & Associates, and it's one of the most recent ones we did. It's called New CMS Call Recording or something like that. We offer a ton of programs. I just want to mention a few of them here. We have the $500 per agent lead program, which is $500 per agent per month. So all agents that work with us, they have their Medicare carriers with us. We will give you each agent, and this includes agencies with sub-agents, $500 per agent per month to offset costs for leads, marketing, advertising, anything, seminars, anything to generate Medicare sales. Really simple how it works. You just buy or spend money on whatever you want. You take the paid receipt, send it to us, and we'll reimburse you the same month. We have a T65 seminar program that can be run it's turnkey. You don't have to invite the people. The vendor does it. You got to find the location, but we're averaging 60 to 65 attendees per seminar. We run them year-round. We've done a lot of them with a lot of agents and agencies in a lot of states. So we can do them in all 50 states. We can run them year-round. They're turnkey. We have sample presentations. We can tailor a presentation specifically to you. And we have a lot of co-op available to help offset the cost of the program. But it's a big program for us. It's been by far our best thing this year, and that's something we offer. So if you haven't looked into it, you have questions, give us a call. We will do free websites for agents. So if an agent needs a website, all you have to do is go buy a URL. You can buy it on GoDaddy, for example, for $20 for 2 years. It's all it costs for the URL. That way you own the URL. And then we will get information from you and build you a website. It will be specific to you. It'll have all the disclaimers on it, and it will have a quote engine on it, a quote comparison and enrollment engine for Medicare on it. We're using the Pearl from Connector or Sunfire to build it. So if you don't have a logo, also you need a logo for a website. If you don't have a logo, we have free logo design, and we'll help you design a logo as well. I mentioned this earlier, but we have all three national platforms for online enrollment that all three have call recording capabilities that are compliant. Connector, Sunfire, Medicare Bot. We offer all three to agents at no cost. And the additional costs now that all three are charging for call recordings, we eat that cost too. So you can use all three systems. They're great systems, and you can use them to be compliant, to be efficient, to enroll people over the phone without a face-to-face at no cost. We do AEP and OEP marketing co-ops all the time. All you do is put a case together of what you're spending money on to generate Medicare sales, and you send us that. And prior to AEP, we have national money from carriers available to help fund those initiatives for you. We get money usually during OEP as well. And last year we had money even during SEP. So if you got things you want to spend money on to generate Medicare sales, we've got a form. It's a one-pager. You fill out, send it to us, and we'll see what we can get you for co-op to help offset your marketing, advertising, and lead costs. So that's it. We will, again, we recorded this webinar. We will send it to everyone that registered, whether you attended or not. If you want to see any old webinars, YouTube, CroneAssociates.com. And that's it. We do these webinars every Wednesday and Thursday at 1 o'clock. We'll send you the recording. If you have any other questions, please call us. Be happy to talk to you about it. And hopefully this was helpful. I know it's been a kind of a tumultuous year because of the new CMS recording rules. But again, we have a webinar on that as well. I think some of us are looking into it a little too much. I tend to do that too complicated, a little more than it is. But anyway, really appreciate you coming on today, and look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Thank you.